The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily represent those of this station or its management.
It's time now for Where You Live with Gene Sullivan, the show that deals with the news and events that affect you the most. Whether you rent or own, live in an HOA, single-family home, or an apartment building, Gene will tackle the issues right where you live. So, from the True North Painting Studios, here is the original man of steel, Resolve himself, who stands for truth, justice, and the association way. Here's Gene Sullivan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Where You Live. I'm Gene Sullivan, and I'm broadcasting from the True North Painting Studios. When you're looking for the right painting contractor, what do you look for? Isn't it someone who will respect you, your time, your property, and your budget? That's what you can expect from True North Painting. Find out more about this exceptional company by going online at truenorthpainting.com. That's truenorthpainting.com. Or give them a call at 952-831-1433. I'm also brought to you by the great folks at Extreme Exteriors and American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency. Want to give a shout out to Christopher Wyatt Earp Huberty at the control panels. How are you, Chris?
I'm good, Gene. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Good.
And boy, I tell you, we've got a lot to cover on today's show. The legislature is in session. We've been dealing the last few weeks with what's happening in other states. We've got some things that we need to take a look right here in our own backyard. So let's begin with property management in the news. Property management in the news is brought to you by Home Furniture and Abbey Floor Coverings. Their showrooms are staffed with professionals who will help you choose what you need to fit both your lifestyle and budget. Whatever you need, chances are they'll have what you're looking for. If you wish to avail yourself of special pricing you're not going to find anywhere else, all Where You Live listeners, call Customer Service Coordinator Lori Matson at 952-224-2663. Our first story is a piece of legislation that is now being introduced at the Minnesota State Capitol. And there are some state legislators right now who feel that there's probably a need for, I guess, what would be considered a kinder, gentler foreclosure process. But is it what they have put together? Is this truly a kinder, gentler foreclosure? And for whom? I have a guest with me on today's show, someone who's been on before. I have Michael Clem, who's an attorney with the law firm of Doherty, Molenda, Solfest, Hills, and Bauer. Just to give you a little bit about the credentials of Michael here and why we needed to have him on the show to talk about this bill. Michael represents clients in real estate transactions, land use, development, and common interest communities. He's certified as a real property law specialist by the State Bar in 2006. Michael has been recognized every year as a rising star in the real estate law by the Minneapolis-St. Paul magazine since 2008. He's active member of the Minnesota State Bar Association, sitting on several committees, including the Minnesota Common Interest Ownership Act, Real Property Law Section, and the Alternative Dispute Resolution Section. In addition, Michael is also serving with on the Minnesota chapter of the Community Associations Institute. I've worked with him the last couple of years on the Legislative Action Committee of CAI, and he's currently serving as the chapter president. So with all of that, welcome, Michael.
Hi, Gene. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, and so the first question is, so with all of that, what do you do then after breakfast?
Work on real estate.
There you go. We've been pretty busy, and more so now that the legislature is in session. I want us to talk today, Michael, about this new bill. It's House File 1941 on foreclosures. But before we do, let me read to you just a couple of news agencies who have reported recently on the area of foreclosure, and let me get your comments. First is ABC News in New York. Just a few months ago in mid-September, they led the news report with this: foreclosure crisis fading fast. Realty Track reports a dramatic drop in the number of homes entering foreclosure from 6 years ago. They reported back then that just from the month of July to August of 2013, that month alone, there was an 8% drop in the number of foreclosures. If you take a look at the number of foreclosures just the same time period the year before, a 44% drop from the year previous. Star Tribune, February 28th, 2014, article, foreclosures going down. They are taking a look at the first quarter period here in the state of Minnesota, January through March. And we're not quite through that first quarter period, but they already see between now from last quarter, a year before, 10% fewer sheriff sales. And so they also report that foreclosures are declining even at a faster rate in the Twin City metro area than the outstate areas of Minnesota. So my first question, Michael, in light of all of this type of news, do you think that a bill like this one is even necessary at this time to address foreclosures?
Well, Gene, the statistics that you gave are consistent with what I've seen in my own practice. I've been at it more than a decade and was in the housing boom, and then had many foreclosure consultations with homeowners facing potential foreclosure, as well as advising banks in connection with foreclosure during the past years. But recently, there's just not been much activity in that foreclosure area compared to prior years during the housing crisis. So I really don't see a need for further legislation to address the foreclosure situation at this point.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I'm just not seeing that as well. But it appears that some of the same players, some of the same legislators, they've been at this for 3 or 4 years now, every year coming to the beginning of the legislative session, wanting to put something together because they feel it's necessary to protect people from what's going on with foreclosures currently. Unfortunately, some of what they do, they paint such a whitewash, broad stroke with what they try to cover. There are some real deleterious effects, especially for homeowners associations. And we're talking about House File 1941. For our listeners, in a nutshell, can you tell us what that bill is proposing?
The bill would require a foreclosure process before a mediation can be completed that would include the foreclosing entity, in the typical case, mortgage company, as well as the subordinate lien holders, which would include homeowners associations. And everyone with a lien would have to participate in that process in what the statute describes as good faith by its definition. And if either the owner opts out of the mediation process, giving up that significant right they would have, or if the mediator gives an affidavit confirming that the mediation was completed, then the foreclosure can go forward. But otherwise, the foreclosure cannot be completed.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that I noticed about this bill, of course, that hit me right away, is the idea or notion that there is an additional, fee that's being asked for here. They are asking that there would be, a new tax, an amount of $300 that is going to be paid to the state's mortgage mediation fund. Who is going to pay that fee?
The statute says that when the documentation, some of the documentation that's required in connection with the foreclosure is submitted, that would be paid by the entity that is foreclosing.
Okay, so we're talking about right off the bat here, additional monies just to be able to handle the foreclosure process.
Yes, and that would affect homeowners associations if they are foreclosing the association lien, if these same requirements apply to them. And it's my understanding, based on the Legislative Action Committee of CAI, recently contacting one of the authors of the bill, it's my understanding the intent is that this would apply to homeowners associations when they foreclose their association lien.
And now it says that they also refer to what's called the Office of Administrative Hearings. Is that going to be a new agency, or is that something that's already in place?
That is already in existence.
Okay.
For example, they would be involved in things like workers' compensation hearings and such.
Okay. And one of the things that they would be doing at the very beginning is assigning a mediator to this beginning process.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Michael, we need to take a break right now, but you can stay with us, can't you?
Yes, sure.
Great. We're talking to attorney Michael Clem. We're talking about this new House File 1941 that wants to deal with a kinder, gentler foreclosure process. Is it necessary? We'll talk more about this after these messages.